Peace and love to the family. This is Darius Corbin. Darius Corbin presents a very special one tonight. Lovecraft Country and the Black Race. Very special presentation tonight. I want to give a shout out to all my people who have watched the HBO series. I personally haven't watched it yet, and this lecture is personally not about the series. It will be about the author himself. But all the same, major respect to all my people out there doing their thing on the YouTube channel, breaking down that show. This will be all about the author of who the show work is based on, his books. And I'm sure they also break down his beliefs, which I will be breaking down fully tonight. So once again, this is the Darius Corbin presentation. Tonight we will be talking about H.P. Lovecraft. I've been hearing a lot of people over the month talking about this show, Lovecraft Country. And I'm like, Lovecraft? Well, that's the name that kind of stands out. It can only be one person. And I did my research, and yep, lo and behold, it was about the work based on H.P. Lovecraft. Now, I'm hearing a lot of people give rave reviews about this show. So, just like a lot of things, that we watch on TV, media, movies, I like to do research on the people doing the movies. I want to know what these writers, these directors, I want to know what's their sources. I want to know what their inspiration is. So, as we know, Jordan Peele did his thing with, is doing his thing with the Lovecraft. Jordan Peele, the one that gave us Get Out. Jordan Peele, the one that gave us Us. So, I know that this show, and this series, is going to be a hit. But I, tonight, are going to give you a big exclusive, and I want you to do your research on H.P. Lovecraft. And his views, not on life, but on black people. And other bodies of color. So I wanted to read this article, man, and I wanted to start off with this. This is a poem. In some of his early work, we're talking about H.P. Lovecraft. And it's called On the Creation of Niggers. On the Creation of Niggers. And we're going to Google this right quick. This is a 1912 poem of H.P. Lovecraft. And don't worry, this is going to be a good episode tonight. From a hectograph poem created to H.P. Lovecraft in the Howard P. Lovecraft collection at Brown University, this is the poem that is well known to be H.P. Lovecraft's 1912, On the Creation of Niggers. When long ago the gods created earth in Jove's fair image, man was shaped at birth. The beasts for lesser parts were next designed, yet were they too remote from humankind to fill the gap and join the rest to man. The Olympian host conceived a clever plan. A beast they wrought in semi-human figure, filled with vice, and called the thing a nigger. And this is from the 1912 work of H.P. Lovecraft. See, H.P. Lovecraft was a very strange, eerie man in presentation, in physical form as I'm meaning, and in his mental stability, because you got to understand, if you don't know who H.P. Lovecraft is, American horror writer, novelist, whatever you want to call him. Well known, very well known. His work, Lovecraft's name has been mentioned in video games, and card games, and all type of just what you would figure would be fantastic. His books are known to be fictional, but trust me, they are based in fictional work. His work is known to be not fictional, but it's based on non-fictional work. So H.P. Lovecraft is a famous American horror novelist, as you've seen his work being played out on the TV series. But in his real life, he had a phobia of anything that was non-white, and that's including blacks, Jews, and Irish. Um, in a few, we'll be going into one of his books, The Horror at Red Hook, and we're going to go deep in that. But I just wanted to leave you with that in 1912. And the time that H.P. Lovecraft grew up was a very racial, segregated time. So his views on non-white people were equivalated with the times that he was in. So his views were in accuracy with the views that a lot of what we call American, or what you figure Donald Trump will call making American great again citizens. So we're going to go into an article that also talks about H.P. Lovecraft. But as I go into this article, I want us to sit back and think about the ways that black people have been created and looked to be as monsters in the minds of the Caucasian. We're going to look at a story on the police officer who killed and shot down Mike Brown, and we're going to listen to his words as he described the confrontation of him and Mike Brown that night that Mike Brown was gunned down. And we're going to really break this psychologically down to how, going back, if you watch my presentation of racism, Birth of Racism, America on Trial, where we're talking about the greatest fear of the white race, which is genetic annihilation. So we're going to see a theme that's been played out since the days of H.P. Lovecraft, which you're really probably seeing now in the series. And I will view the series shortly. There was a racial fear of black people that H.P. Lovecraft played out in his horror novels. So we're going to jump right into the Darren Wilson, the officer who killed Mike Brown. How he described Mike Brown that night. So give me a few minutes as I find this right quick. It's not going to take long, I promise you. It won't take that long at all. Okay. Here we go. And we're going to go right back to that. It should come as no surprise that a racist imagination possesses an uncanny ability to concoct the most outlandish and fiendish representations of minorities and immigrants. Pre-existing social hierarchies and political forces give those depictions life and validity. Darren Wilson's horror-ridden tale of the death of Mike Brown, delivered to a grand jury on September 16, 2014, shows one strand of the continuous thread of black youth and lived in the racist imaginary as a monstrosity to be met with force. It is the tale a child, if child he may be called, whose presence and demeanor were so dangerous that the only solution was a bullet to the brain. And we're quoting Darren Wilson, the police officer who killed Mike Brown now. I never seen anybody look that, for lack of a better word, crazy, Wilson testified. That's the only way I can describe it. It looks like a demon. Now he's talking about Mike Brown, but he's saying it looks like a demon. That's how angry he looked. In Wilson's story, even the spraying of firepower can't stop Brown, who begins to feed on the violence. Wilson claims that, and I quote, "At this point, it looked like he was almost bucking up to run through the shot. Therefore, in a desperate move, the grand jury is told the fatal silver bullet was fired, and when it went into him, the demeanor on his face went blank. The aggression was gone. It was gone. I knew he stopped. The threat was stopped." Once again, end quote, that was Darren Wilson, the police officer who gunned down Mike Brown. And for you out there who watching may say, bro, what does this have to do anything with H.P. Lovecraft? Well, you have to understand that as I read on as I read on the creation of niggers that H.P. Lovecraft wrote 1912. His views on black people were based on his nightmarish, his phobia, his distaste for anything non-white. He even once praised Hitler, saying, I know that boy is a clown, but there's something about that boy, almost cheering the praise of his treatment to Jews and non-whites. But we're going to go on to a little up here. We're going to talk about this book that he had, and we're going to go in further. Let's see here. Let's go further. One of Lovecraft's notable tales concerned a troubled detective who comes across a horde of prowlers with their sin-spitted faces who mixed their venom and perpetrated obscene terrors. They are some fiendish, cryptical, and ancient pattern, beyond human understanding, but still retain a singular suspicion of order that lurks beneath their squalid disorder, with babbles of sound and filth. They scream into the night air to answer the nearby lapping oily waves at its grimy piers. They live within a maze of hyperbred squalor near an ancient waterfront. Now, this is one of Lovecraft's stories. Lovecraft is describing these vicious monsters that lurk in this dream world. But the thing about it, these are coming from his dream world, the nightmares. But in his reality, these monsters are blacks. Let's continue on. And also, non-whites. They live within a maze of hybrid squalor near an ancient waterfront, a space leprous and cancerous with an evil dragged from elder worlds. One could be forgiven for mistaking this space as an evil abyss populated by beasts from mythical Necronomicon. And I'm messing it up now, but it's a magical spell book. And more than that, Necronomicon. However, this vignette is from his short story, The Horror at Red Hook. And the cursed space is not some maleficent mountain of the great old ones, but the Brooklyn neighborhood right off the pier. So if you're not understanding what I'm saying within my jabbling, H.P. Lovecraft, in his supposed fiction stories, wrote about these monsters in his dream world, these nightmarish, hideous monsters. But really what he was doing was describing what his nightmares projected at him as he felt his fear, his phobia of anything non-white, blacks, Jews, Asians, Irish. So the horror at Red Hook and the accursed space is not some old Venetian mountain of the great old ones, the Brooklyn neighborhood right off the pier. The brutish monsters conducts for a deeper evil are the Syrian, Spanish, Italian, and Negroes of New York City. So those monsters that he's talking about are really the Syrians, Spanish, Italian, and the Negroes of New York City. In all of his collected works, this may be the one where his racist opinions are made the most explicit. A relatively straightforward detective story, The Horror of Red Hook, one of his novels, unfolds in Lovecraft's typical fashion. The deeper evil is slowly brought to light in scenes of intermixing immigrants whose neighborhood is revealed in the final act to be the literal gateway to hell. Strong anti-immigration sentiments and gaudy displays of sympathy for racist policing appear throughout, with reference to immigrants that range from monsters to contagious. We see blacks and immigrants, the bringers of chaos. And if you knew how true that was, in American law and order, subject to a scientific scrutiny that perceives them as a danger to the master race. The story was instigated by Lovecraft's tenure in Brooklyn when he went to Brooklyn in 1924 to 1926, a time of shifting demographics greatly affected by the great migration of blacks from the South to the Midwest and to the North. In one letter, Lovecraft describes living in Brooklyn as being imprisoned in a nightmare. And upon leaving, he swore that not even the threat of damnation could induce me to dwell in the accursed place again. Now listen to this. His wife Sonia recounted that whenever he would meet crowds of people in the subway or at the noon hours at the sidewalks of Broadway or crowds whoever he happened to find them, and these were usually the workers of minority races, he would become livid with anger and rage. Do you understand that? Every time this man would just be around, see the sight of black people, at this time in the 1900s, Irish people, Irish and Italians were not widely accepted in America and as a part of being America as you think back in those times. Believe it or not, the Irish and the Italians were pretty much damn near deemed as worse as us. Like, you're fucking worse than the black people. You are part of the black people, Jews as well. So, this man's nightmares, and this goes back to me telling you about authors like Richard Cavendish. Like Richard Cavendish, who wrote about black magic and black arts. And in his studies and in his scientific studies, he actually said that in white people's nightmares, their nightmares are black people. So here we have this man, H.P. Lovecraft, who is a famous, they have cults based on this man's work. People like Axel Crowley, H.P. Belansky are well known and well familiar with H.P. Lovecraft's work. And so when you look at Lovecraft Country and you see what the brother Jordan Peele is doing, it's no different than what he was doing in the movie Get Out. It's no different than what he's doing in the movie Get Us. In the movie Us, excuse me. It's no different. Except this time, from what I'm hearing, he's actually flipping the script instead of what they find out as these, and this is back in like the civil rights time, as I'm hearing. He's actually filming the script where the black people found out that the white men are actually monsters, or actually these monsters, and But in H.P. Lovecraft's real life, the man who work these series are based on, look him up. You will see that he considered the black man semi-human. The monsters, the gods like Cthulhu, one of the famous monstrous gods in H.P. Lovecraft's novels, the one with the tentacles that look like a freaking octopus, I want to say. Like, these monsters, listen, this is the part you're going to understand, family. These monsters, these creatures that are in HP that you're seeing for the first time, a lot of you, in Lovecraft Country, these are actually known creatures, believe it or not, in our real time, in ancient times, that have been known to exist. See, Lovecraft's work was known to be fictional, but truly his work was not fictional. It was based on non-fiction accurate work, based on creatures back in the Muslim days, stories like the 101 Night, I believe the 101 Nights, Arabian Nights, 101 Arabian Nights, books like that, creatures like in the Holy Quran that you hear about, the jinns, the devas, D-E-V-A-S as they're called. These were actually creatures, dragons, monsters that had mystical power that were really around people, you have to understand. So that's why I want to break this down. Because once you go into a deeper work and you exit the work of religion and you go into the world where they told you not to dwell in, when you really understand that this is your work. See, there's a lot of people who studied your work, melanated people. There's a lot of people who studied our work. So with H.P. Lovecraft, his views, can I be mad at him? Can we be mad at him? Maybe, maybe not. His views were, at the time, America's views. Still really America's views that they're trying to work out. But let's look at the time of that he was around, family. The time of Hitler, where he actually gave a shit out to Hitler. Man, I know that boy's a clown, and I'm paraphrasing him talking about Hitler, H.P. Lovecraft. I know that boy's a clown, but he's doing a pretty damn good job. And what was Hitler doing at the time? Well, as we know, Holocaust, of course. But what also was involved with Holocaust for my researchers, for my ones who really go deep? Well, eugenics. A lot of people talk about Planned Parenthood. Well, look up eugenics. Don't really want to break it down right now, but I really do. I'm going to try and throw it off. EUGNECIS. But I didn't really want to break EUGNEICS. Eugenics. Nowadays it's called transhumanism as well, with a different little twist. But eugenics was really about the survival of the white race. Knowing what we talked about in my last presentation about the genetic annihilation of the white race. See, Hitler strongly believed that the white race was the superior race based on certain knowledge that he got in Tibet about the Aryan race. Aryan, I want to say, is Aryan. It might be two A's in that, but the Aryan race. Do your research on the Aryan race. So, H.P. Lovecraft, doing his homework, being a great writer, being a great reader as well, took a lot of what he learned from a lot of the jinns, which a lot of Christians and religious people know as demons or spirits. But what you do have to understand, to my family out there, when we're dealing in that type of world, in that world that you have all but abandoned out of fear, you have to understand that no matter how much you want to run from so-called demons or type of evil, what you perceive as evil entity, this shit has been around and is still around way longer than any of us on this planet has been together, added up. These beings have been hidden, have been denounced, no different than Freddy Krueger in the movies when they told these kids to take these pills so they can sleep well or just get rid of their nightmares. Let's break that down, for example. Think about that for Freddy Krueger, the nightmares. The whole town trying to suppress their nightmares because it was affecting their kids. Think about that. And since we want to go and talk about H.P. Lovecraft and Lovecraft Country and do this show now, and the information that I give you about Lovecraft himself, do your research on how deep this man went into his fear of everything that was non-white. He put it all in his books. And now his work is all over video games. His work's for many years now. You're just now learning about H.P. Lovecraft. But what my show was about is for you digging deep, esoterically. A lot of people claim to know everything or want to know everything about everything. But once you get that truth, a lot of people fall back on the truth. You want the truth of people. You crave for that truth. You crave for the secrets. You crave to know this, but once you find out, it gets too dark for you and you want to back out. Huh? A lot of you have known the truth about Jesus. A lot of you are knowing the fact now, and when we're bringing astrology into this, and I'm telling you about the age of Aquarius, when Jesus was talking to his disciples, when they were asking him when we return or whatnot, when we know when you come back, and he actually used astrology when referencing the age of Aquarius. But if you're not reading and if you're not really doing research on your religion and allowing religion to do continuous research and dissecting on you, then you won't do this. So I urge you to research H.P. Lovecraft. I'm not going to tarry on too long on this lecture. I just briefly wanted to do a quick one on H.P. Lovecraft, because just like Gene Roddenberry, I believe I'm saying his name right. Gene Roddenberry, the creator of Star Trek, it goes a lot deeper. And if you're not looking up these people, if you're not seeing George Lucas's connections to Joseph Campbell, who was the author of The Hero's Journey, a great book that I believe all spiritual searching and spiritual divine reaching people should read, The Hero's Journey, and you see why when a lot of us watched Star Wars back in the day, why you felt connected to it. Joseph Campbell, The Hero's Journey, that's a book I'm telling you to read. Him and George Lucas was great friends. Read upon Gene Roddenberry, since we have a lot of Star Trek fans out there. I'm sure there's a lot of Star Trek fans that are watching this at this time. Look upon the creator of Star Trek. You know, when you watch this, Deep Space Nine, you know, all the ones, you know, in Stargate 1, SG-1, but let's go back to Star Trek, Gene Roddenberry. And for all you who remember Deep Space Nine, you remember the first Star Trek when it came out? Yeah? Do you remember how diverse Deep Space Nine was? I want you to do your research and see Gene Roddenberry connection to the MIT Institute. And you can maybe find out a little deeper who the Deep Space Nine really was. See, that's what my channel was all about, family. Because at this time and age right now, you can be religious. This is not about a debate with me. You're not going to get that with me. You have free will. One thing about us being humans on this planet and the difference between us and angels, who, yes, do exist by the freaking masses, we have something that angels don't. So you can learn a little bit more about the story of the angels or the watchers from the story of Enoch that is also briefly mentioned in the Bible. We have what the angels don't have. Well, what's that, Corbin? We have free will. You want to go out here and cause trouble, fuck shit up? Go ahead. Well, you have to deal with what? The cause or effect. That is a universal law. If you want to go out here and do good and gain merit and be positive and gain higher gnosis, you can do that as well, which is the true path. But the angels, the Sephirim, the cherubim, they don't have that choice. So as we focus so much on this God that you guys go to church to praise, see, yeah, I'm going to bring it right back. I want you to do your research, in-depth research, to understand that there is a higher God than the God you praise. Do your research. Read the books. Don't be afraid. I can sense a lot of the fear, and there's no need for it. It's not even going to stop. This shit's not even going to stop. Because the person around you, the person next door to you, the closest one in your family, they talking the same talk Corbin is talking right now. And it's shaking the whole foundation of you up. Do your research. You don't have to fight this shit. If you spiritual, be spiritual. It's not about oppressing nobody no more. If you're still in 2020 and we're so shy of 2021, if you're still about trying to oppress somebody or worrying about what A's doing when you should be worrying about you, hey. See, family out there, let me say this. A lot of you right now are really going through what I call fifth dimension, third dimension. A lot of us are still stuck in the third dimension. A lot of you still are in that everyday, you know what, negativity space. No matter what, you just have been swimming in negativity so much that all you know, everybody else around you is growing. Even though you see the growth in people, it's still a denial. You're still fighting back. You still want to remain with the same ways, the same patterns, the same vibration. For the people who are going through that change in the most powerful, uplifting way, you personally are starting to realize that everything that you always knew you can do, everything that you kind of doubt yourself in the back of your head, these are the things now that are pushing you forward. The progress, the self-worth that you're giving yourself. See, this is where you're supposed to be at right now, and I know it feels good. It's supposed to feel good. So, continue to do that. Continue to do your research, because in this time of great awakening, you leave in the third and fourth dimensions and enter in this fifth dimension, the age of Aquarius, the age of the Aquarius. Thank you. This is going to be a great time for the ones who know they deserve a great life. For the ones who know they are spiritual on levels where now the past lives are coming all together in just one, and now you are recognizing self. So what self-recognition? That will glow, that will illuminate. Everybody will be able to appreciate you for who you really are, because now you have finally appreciated you. So continue to do your research. I'm going to be watching Lovecraft Country with you, but With all that being said, I want you to look up the man behind the series that you are watching. Know who he is. Know his views on non-whites, blacks, Jews, Italians, Irish. Understand and research the work, because it's going to lead you into a lot of esoteric shit. It's going to put you to that rabbit hole that everybody talking about. It's time for you to get out of the stage of fear and embrace the darkness. Because out of the darkness, light shall come. You all know that. Out of the darkness, light shall come. So it's time for you to illuminate. There are a lot of people like H.P. Lovecraft and H.P. Belansky, Aleister Crowley, these European, Caucasian, whatever you call it, whites, who for centuries, since the early 1900s, late 1800s, have studied our work and have studied the work of the melanated people and indigenous people. Now it's time for us to do our research on our own selves and gain the gnosis we all deserve. So peace and love to the family. Love, respect, enlightenment, prosperity. This is Corbin reporting live. Blessings. Peace.